All right, everyone, welcome back to the Lost and Found podcast. Today, we are honored to have Jason Ferguson with us. He is a dynamic speaker, author, and consultant whose personal journey and professional mission center around turning adversity into advantage. Jason's background spans from an aspiring athlete to an elite sales leader to transformation mindset coach. He's the creator of the R.A.M.P framework, which includes radical accountability, authenticity, mission-driven habits, and pathological optimism. It is a model that he uses to help people and teams move past their limits and perform with purpose. So in this conversation, we're going to dive into the setbacks that shaped him, including how he used a shattered dream of playing in the NFL to become his biggest turning point, and he rebuilt his life from the ground up. So if you are wrestling with meaning or trying to rebuild yourself after a setback and you want tangible tools to use for your own path forward, this episode is going to give you the real blueprint. Grab your pen. Jason delivers more than just ideas. He delivers lived strategies. So let's go. Everybody welcome Jason to the podcast. Hi, man.
Let's go. I appreciate you. Super excited to be here and love the intro. Very solid intro. So I appreciate it.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. I'm glad. I like to try and do that. My mom told me that she listens to the show and she goes, my favorite part's when you tell people about themselves. And I was like, okay, good. It means all truthful.
Oh yeah. And I gotta say hi to mom, and I would agree with her. Like, it's great hearing, just listening to some of those things back. It's like a beautiful reminder of the work that I'm doing and some of what I've been through. You know what I mean? So great job.
Yes. Well, and also you never give yourself credit, right? Like despite how successful you've become and how much your life has tripled, in abundance, or you've changed things for the better, you're still hard on yourself. Everybody is to a certain level. Everybody has a little bit of self-doubt. Everybody has a little bit of that imposter syndrome somewhere in there. Unless you're like Ilona Maher and you're like, imposter who? Like,
No,
excuse me.
100%. Imposter syndrome is real. And I'm sure we're going to talk about that. I battled that with the book for sure. But I also think there's another element with that where it's like the gap in the game. Like, we as humans live in the gap between where we are and where we want to be. And we rarely celebrate the gain, like all that we've done and the accomplishments and strides that we've either made professionally, personally to advance our lives. So whether it's imposter syndrome or that, right, there's often that space of like just limited acknowledgement when it comes to the life that you've created. And it's a great call out.
Yeah, well, and I'm glad you said that because that's a huge part of this show. And that's kind of how I title it on like all my social pages, that this is a storytelling community that helps you bridge the gap between who you are and who you want to become. And so while you're on that bridge, ideally you're listening to my episodes. Like we're going along together. But, and you call it Danza, right? Or
Danza. Big Danza.
Okay,
Let's
yeah,
go.
you'll have to explain that to the listeners, but I'd love to just, you've got so much to pack into this 1 hour, so I want to hit it now, which is another one. You have to tell people why get hit is important. But let's go back to the beginning. So you started out playing football in high school, and you were going to go to college. You went to the University of Hawaii to play. But football was more than just a sport for you. It became your escape. It became your identity. It became everything that you are. And when you had to let that go and it was stripped away from you, it became such a massive loss. And we talk about that a lot because I had a big identity when I worked in the federal government. And when I left the FBI, when I was no longer there anymore, I just deteriorated. I had no idea, did not realize that like my whole self-worth was packed into that. So I would love it if you could talk about what happened to you when you first got out of football. You couldn't be a college athlete anymore. And you're kind of like, who am I without this?
Yeah. So I grew up in West LA, inner city, Los Angeles kid. Since I was maybe 7, my entire identity was wrapped in being an athlete. I played everything. I played baseball, basketball, football. I had rollerblades and I had like a hockey stick. Me and my brother would be in the middle street playing roller hockey. I was through and through an athlete. And early on, I recognized that not only was I good at sports, like I was really passionate about it, extremely competitive, and it became my world. So as I got to middle school and high school, I was very clear on what I wanted and how I was going to get there. And like my goal was the NFL, but the first step was college. So I was obsessed with this idea of being like a massive college football star. And then I go to the NFL and I get to retire my mom. And part of my identity with sports was it also came from witnessing domestic violence, right? Like I watched my mom nearly, beaten to death, and like sports was like a massive outlet for me and my brother as we kind of juggled some of the trauma and mental health side effects that came with witnessing all of the crazy. So I have all these things, right, attached to this identity, self-worth and who I am. When I lost it at the college level on a play where I shouldn't even have been in the game, by the way, let me just add that, and we could maybe unpack
Right.
that later.
Yeah.
I wound up tearing my ACL for the second time in the same knee on a play where I shouldn't even been in. A kid couldn't find his helmet, and like here I am, cocky, confident, like I'll just run in there and take the play. Boom, tear my ACL, and I lost it all, and quite frankly, lost my mind. It was it wasn't instant, but it was quick. It was like a slow erosion that then happened really fast. And I know that sounds contradictory, but it's like it started off slow with me dabbling with painkillers and then instantly escalated into a massive opioid, specifically Oxycontin addiction, that then snatched 10 years of my life. Like when I say, I was an extreme addict, I say that with every fiber of my being. I got so bad in my addiction that I was either going to die, end up in jail, or be homeless on Skid Row, which is an infamous part of downtown Los Angeles. I completely lost myself, all of my self-worth. And I felt like I didn't know not only who I am, but like I didn't realize like the other parts of me that could shine through and still be lovable and likable or potentially successful without the notoriety that I built that identity on. And I really, really struggled for about a decade.
Yeah. And also a slippery slope that you weren't really aware maybe to start thinking about. Because I know there was a part in here where you talked about initially you blamed everybody else, right? I shouldn't have been in that play. The coaches should have checked on me more. My friend should have told me don't take those drugs, or I should have gotten caught and I didn't, or all these other things. Thing after thing after thing was building up for you, and you're not focusing on, hey, I got caught up in my own issues because I never addressed it ahead of time, right? It's one of those where it became so easy, I'm sure, to push off onto other people because facing your own pain in that moment just didn't sound like the right thing to do. It wasn't the easy thing to do. And so you, like many people, you probably got caught up in trying to find the easy way out of your problem, which was just physical pain and emotional pain because you didn't get to be that guy anymore, the legend like you felt like anymore.
Correct. And I often think too that you don't even realize how deep of a spiral you're in initially, right? So the projecting and the numbing, at first it could be masked by fun, right? It felt like at the beginning, this was just me having a blast, right? I went from not being a partier at all to just this out of control partier. And it was so new to me and extreme, but also numbing and like a way for me to be distracted. I didn't realize the spiral that I was in. And by the time I realized just how bad I was and how bad it had gotten and how deeply I was deflecting and not taking any ownership and blaming it on all these external factors, I was in really, really deep. And I also didn't, have a lot of resources and I also wasn't looking for resources, to be completely honest, but didn't have the foundation to pull myself out once I was that deep, which contributed to the snowball and the avalanche of just bad decisions over the 10 years.
Yeah, and that's exactly what you said, right? The slow escalation, right? You're
It
just going
starts off
on and
like
on and on,
this.
and then at one point you're like, "Dang, this is deep. Dang, this is bad." Yeah. In your book, you describe different points in your life where you're having these internal conversations with yourself. You're calling it the war between your ears in your book. I'm wondering, could you give us a little bit an idea of one of those wars? Tell us about some of your bigger internal battles that were going on during those early years, and what made you decide you need to actually start trying to win this war and not let it consume?
Yeah. So like we all deal with that inner voice, right? And there's two versions of that inner voice. There's that inner voice that's trying to lead you to greatness and success and away from comfort, right? Because in order for you to be successful and to do all the things that you want to do and be happy, oftentimes you have to get uncomfortable. And then there's the other voice that's like keeping you trapped and like in this repetitive dark cycle, trying to keep you comfortable. And for me, comfort was associated with using drugs. It was the numbing. It was the, how can I just get through the day? It was, let me sleep in and not work out and not take care of myself. So that inner war between the ears was like this tug of war between like this voice that knew I wasn't doing the right thing and like oftentimes knew exactly the first step that I needed to take to do the right thing. And then this other voice that was just keeping me trapped in this hell. And to be completely honest, that dark, more devilish voice was kicking my butt like consistently. It just would supersede any other thought of like, happiness, gratitude, anything that would lead me down a more fulfilling path, it would just be silenced by that additional voice. And like, yeah, I could tell you one specific moment that changed my life where I knew better and I allowed the darker voice to win. I'm just gonna get a little graphic here for your listeners, so just heads up. But the first time I used needles, I'm sitting in a car and it's one of my really good friends, and I just found out he was using needles in his addiction. And I knew better. I was a superstar athlete. Never in a million years did I think I would graduate to injecting drugs. Like that never crossed my mind. And I'm watching him do this in the car in front of me. And I have a moment where that voice pops up and it's like, well, how would that feel? Like, how fast would it hit you? Like seconds? Are we talking a fraction of a second? How much less would you have to do? Would it be cheaper? You know what I mean? How many would you do? And then there's other voice that's like, hey man, this might kill you. This is graduating to a level of crazy that you're not even prepared for. Is it worth it? And I remember vividly having these thoughts. There was literally two different people on my shoulder, and I eventually just said, F it, rolled up my sleeve and allowed this dude to wipe the blood off the end of his needle and inject me with it. And it nearly killed me. I mean, that decision, not only is it embarrassing and shameful, but I came here to tell the truth. I think it's a perfect example of how that dark voice, that war, can send you down a path that not only are you not ready for, but has really serious consequences.
Yeah, and I appreciate that. In your book, you are very honest. There are a lot of stories that you share throughout your journey, and one of the things I appreciated the most was that you admitted how misperceptions that you already had about who drug dealers are or who drug addicts are, and not really acknowledging, oh, I am an addict. Like, this is me now. This is my life. It has physically altered my life, because everybody has the Hollywood perception of what that dirty, seedy life looks like until you're really actually a part of it. And it starts so subliminally, and it impacted your own identity too, because it kind of twisted things for you. And you were honest in the book about walking into this. You're like, oh, I can handle it. I can go to rehab and I'll be done. I can do my 90 days and I'll be fixed. I'll be set. Like, I'm strong enough. I'm smart enough. I'm young enough. I can get fit again. I'll be okay. I can fight it off. I can handle it. But then as the chapters go on in the book, you reveal the multiple times that you were challenged again, the multiple times that you were tested again, the multiple times that people in your life who maybe knew or didn't know you were an addict, and they would present the environment back to you, and you would still go, oh, I've been sober for X amount of time. I got it. I
Yeah.
got it. I got it. And the truth is, it is a lifelong choice that you are now having to make over and over and over again, despite being sober for how long now? I guess a couple years.
It'd be 8 years at the end of this month.
Yeah, but for the rest of your life, that is a daily decision that you now have to make. And I think that that's one of the biggest misconceptions people have about what actually is addiction and how does it impact you. It's not just in that moment when you're using, it's in the sober moments as well, probably 10 times the amount, because despite being that, you still have to have all the control and the belief in yourself to go, I remember what that used to be like, and now I don't want to lose that again. I don't want to go back to that version. But when you're in it and in the trenches, you're kind of like, no, it's fine. I got it. Whatever. That voice is telling you you're okay, when the truth is it could take you out immediately. So I appreciated that so much, because you didn't lie about, like, I was wrong. Initially,
Yeah.
I was totally wrong.
Absolutely. And I think the only way to learn from that, even beyond the addiction, is like understanding the internal battle that's going on. And it's not just about like me beating drugs, right? It's like there are certain people on the call that have been battling with like fitness, right? that voice still exists. It's like, are we going to go to the gym today or not? And it's this internal war. Or it's about maybe spending time with your kid and you've had a long day after work, right? And you're like, hey, I made this commitment. I'm going to start spending an hour, 3 days a week with my kid with uninterrupted time. And then you clock off and you're like, man, that couch is looking real comfortable. You know what I mean? The game is on. There's always an internal battle that you're going to have to reconcile against and understand what's going on, right? The self-awareness, but then too, like, how to find the opportunity and like create the muscle memory to push through.
Yeah. What would you say was probably the hardest part about taking accountability for these choices and starting to rebuild your life again? And so how did you begin to truly do that for yourself?
Yeah, oh man, it was a devastating moment. I had gotten clean, relapsed, and I want to say around like the third time of me getting some decent amount of clean time. And when I say decent, I mean like a handful of months. I was able to like kick off my sales career. And I was like, okay, I need to establish a career and sales is going to be my direction. And I had a great mentor who was like one of my best friends. And we went through this whole journey of breaking me into tech sales. And I wound up getting this job that I was not qualified for. I had no business to be given this opportunity, but the manager and the VP of sales saw something in me and they blessed me with this incredible opportunity. And I would say within the first couple of months, I start doing well. And then halfway through the first year, I become a top performer there. And I am like, no lie, living my dream. I'm making far more money than I even thought I'd ever make, right? Our office looked like Google. It was cracking, to say the least. I'm living my dream. And I relapse in the middle of this opportunity. And I convinced myself that the drugs on the sales floor was like fueling my skill set, if that makes sense. Like maybe on some like Wolf of Wall Street type stuff, right?
Yeah.
Where like,
Amplified you. Yeah.
right, like I'm on the phone now and I'm saying crazy stuff and it's just so electric and alive. And like, a lot of my buddies on the floor, they're doing drugs with me. And it was just all out chaos every day. And I loved it. And long story short, I wound up losing that job. My wife had just quit her job, right, to be a stay-at-home mom, and my daughter was a month old. So now I have to come home, tell my wife that I lost this job, that we moved across the ocean floor, because mind you, we lived in Hawaii. So like she quit nursing school. We moved to the Bay, which is in San Francisco, right? For this opportunity, I do well, wife quits her job, and now I have to come home and tell her, hey, I don't know what we're going to do because I lost this job. And mind you, this is compounded by all of the other crazy that I had put my wife and myself through, right? The needles, the rehab. I mean, the stories go on and on in the book, obviously. But for me, that was the moment where I said, I'm gonna die or lose it all. I'm legit going to die or lose it all and be homeless. This is a real definitive moment. And in that moment, I finally made the decision to start doing the work. Not act like I'm doing the work, not go to rehab because my mom wanted me to go to rehab, not go to therapy because it was starting to be the cool thing to do on Instagram. I mean, truly start unpacking my thinking to be more aware, understanding boundaries and everything that I needed, right, to become that future version of myself that you always talk about to survive, right, for me, my kid, and my wife. And that was the moment, man. That was the moment that I said enough is enough. And I call it my origin story. As dark and as like sad as it is, there's a lot more detail. This is just like me giving you the Cliff Notes version, right? That's what it took for me to finally wake up.
And I'm impressed that your wife was able to take that in that moment too, because I'm sure that wasn't a conversation she was expecting to have you start out with. I've seen him do all these things and now he goes and he does this too. What are we going to do? Where are we going to go? And it sounds like you lucked out. You've ended up finding, based on the stories that are in the book about your interactions with your wife, you truly found a teammate there. She's seen you at your absolute worst and she's seen you at your best. And she's also seen the reincarnation or the redemptive version of you too. And she supported that and pushed you. And I think that that's awesome. And I commend you for being honest in that moment, because you could have gone home, right? And you could have been like, yeah, I'm fine. I'm totally going to work. I'm totally driving 2 hours into San Francisco every day. And instead you could have run immediately back to the drugs. You could have gone spend your 10, 12-hour day on the streets in San Francisco, and you didn't. You changed your routine. You actually attempted to reinvent yourself in that moment.
Thank thank you. I think a large part about like transforming and becoming that future version of yourself that you're trying to be and crossing that bridge is about being honest. And like, I had not been honest, right? Like, nothing about my life was like centered around honesty at any level with myself, with my wife, with my, employer, with my friends, right? Like, I'm out of control, right? So, like, part of me having to go home and face the music with my wife was being honest, right? Like, to heal, you got to reveal. And, I was just shattered, man. Like, part of what I got fired for, and it's in the book, it was so humiliating and so, um, disgraceful. I was like I couldn't believe that I had done what I did because like I was high in like a blackout state and I was just filled with so much shame. I had to deal with it. Like there was no way around it. The only way out was through.
Yeah,
And I just had to like grab my belt, pull my pants up, and like the first step was facing my wife. And like luckily, you know, it hurt. Trying to figure out the best way to say it. Like it hurt, but we got through it and she continued to believe in me. And, she'll be the first one to tell you, like, she stuck in because the man that I am today is the person that she always believed I could be. And I think once I started doing the work, she started gaining confidence again.
yeah. Well, she knew you were in there the whole time, right? Like she saw it from the beginning when you were 18, 19 years old, or whenever you guys met in Hawaii. Like she knew he was there. It just you had to
I don't
believe that
know
he
how.
was in there. Yeah, yeah,
I don't know how. I was a little psychopath. High five, right? Big energy. She is a complete savage to be able to hang in there and truly see that in me. I think it takes a special type of human being for
for
sure
sure.
because it could not have been easy.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Well, let's talk about a bit more about your reinvention, right? Like you pivoted after losing that job. You have finally hit your version of rock bottom, and everybody's versions are all different, right? So let's talk a bit more about like your steps for that. In your book, you've got lots of different, I think you call it,
A
you've
life
got
contract.
mission driven habits and you've got your life contract with yourself. Like, let's go through how did you actually decide to rebuild your life and what were some of the habits or the routines that you integrated after losing that job that helped you kind of bring you back to yourself?
Yeah. Such a good question because it goes hand in hand with some of the things you've already asked me, right? That inner war between the ears
Yeah.
and like foundational elements. So for me, one, being honest was the first step. I say it all the time. In order to heal, you must reveal. I just had to own up to all of the bad decisions I was making and stop blaming them on external factors and truly look in the mirror and say, no, bro, like this is all you. This is all a result and a product of your thinking and limited thinking. I think part of that was realizing that my environment was dictating my thoughts, actions, and emotions. And I needed to flip that. I needed my thoughts, actions, and emotions to create the environment that I wanted to see myself in and create the man that I wanted to become and the life that I wanted to live for myself. And I think the first step for that, right, in my process, my journey was therapy. I had resisted therapy for years, even though I had experience with therapy due to the abuse that I watched my mom go through. I just resisted it, man. A black man growing up in Los Angeles, it was kind of frowned upon. Like you just deal with shit. You know what I mean? Excuse my language. And that's kind of how I did it. But like it didn't work. It wasn't working. So therapy was the first step. The second step was like I needed an addiction specialist that could truly help me like bunker down and like all things addiction. When I went to rehab, I was already making reservations to use before I even left. You know what I mean? And making reservations means that planning your relapse the entire time. This time, like I needed a specialist that one can prescribe me either Suboxone or what was the other thing? There's another drug that can help with withdrawals. But I was such a heavy user, my withdrawals nearly kill me. Like
Right.
I'm talking about the worst form of withdrawals you've ever seen. So like I needed a specialist that can help me with Suboxone and then also help me understand the true nuances and like behaviors associated with addiction on all things addiction. That's where I started with those two steps. I think it evolved into something even more meaningful. And this is what I call mission driven habits, right? Like I created a life contract around mission driven habits, basically a system, a foundation of things that I execute on every single day that allow me to be like driven and fueled and pushed towards becoming the man that I aspire to be with like every, part of my soul. And those 4 habits, right? And I'll kind of break those down here in a second. It starts with a 4 a.m. wake up. And a lot of time people are like, man, you wake up at 4 a.m.? Like, why? That just sounds excessive and crazy. It sounds like some Instagram stuff. And like for me, there's two benefits from it. One, you got to confront that voice. For me, it was the easiest way to stack a win and dominate that voice that was keeping me trapped in hell. Every time my alarm goes off at 4 o'clock in the morning, my voice is saying, don't get up, bro. Let's wake up tomorrow. Like it's cold out of the bed. You know what I mean? It's so much easier. Hit snooze. And that was the first step in me being able to dominate that voice and get my butt up when I know the rest of the world is asleep and comfortable in their bed. So that was the first piece. The second step in my mission-driven habit is meditation, which is ironic because I made fun of meditation for years. I'm like, man, I'm not meditating. Some of my mentors are extremely successful in tech and beyond. They all meditate. And I never considered it until I was desperate. And now it's a non-negotiable habit in my day. The third thing, and to me, one of the most important things, is reading. Man, I read like a madman. I didn't even realize that I was an avid reader until I started reading the right material. And I read all things from like memoirs to personal development and self-help. I read 2 to 3 books a month, and it's just part of my daily routine. Most of the time it's audible. Sometimes it's paperback so I can mark up the book and dive deep. But my habit is pushing play, listening to the book, and priming myself for the day. And then the last step is working out. And for me, working out is extremely therapeutic. 2 things come out of working out, right? One is you start to look at yourself with pride again. I was a guy, a grown man who would go to the bathroom in the dark to avoid the mirror.
Right.
Like that's how bad I looked. I was 50 pounds overweight, face looking all torn up from the drugs and the alcohol. And like my skin is a reflection of my lifestyle, right? I just looked terrible. Fitness obviously helped me gain a sense of confidence back and pride. But the other thing that it does is, again, it allows me to dominate that voice. We got to dominate the voice that says, don't work out today, work out tomorrow, right? The voice that says, you're too tired today. I never want to work out. So that voice is there every day. The second place where that voice pops up is halfway through the workout. Every single time that voice is like, all right, bro, hang it up. You've done enough. Look at your arms. Like you can see the vein. Let's dip. And I'm like, no, like this is what we said we're going to do today. And we're not bouncing until it's done. Right. So, I know I kind of went deep there, but for me, those mission-driven habits allow me to restore purpose and discipline. But most importantly, I call it win stacking. It allows me to stack 4 wins every single day, no matter what's going on in my marriage, no matter what's going on at work. I know if I hit these habits, I could win the day, and that could fuel me into every other area of my life with the right energy and the leader that I need to be for my company and my wife and family.
Yeah, that's good. And it sounds like
That's a lot. I know that was a lot. I was
no, dude,
long-winded.
no. It's important. It's very easy. It's so hard for, people can just tell you, oh, like just motivate yourself or do this, do that. And you turned it into 4 things. You kept it really simple. They were all doable things for you, especially when you timed it out, right? If you start at 4, I mean, doesn't The Rock start at like 3:45? Like something like goes to bed at 11.
Mark Wahlberg's up at like 2 o'clock every day.
They must go to bed at like 6 p.m. I don't know how, because one of the major things I interviewed a guy that was the co-founder for Dream Recovery. So it's a performance-based and recovery-based company. They've developed all these different types of like face masks and nose plugs and different things to help you sleep better, because when you sleep, you can recover. And when you recover better, you can perform better in all different aspects of your life. And that I'm shortening the science very short, but it fascinates me though, because like if people can do that, but they're going to bed at like midnight or 11, how do you have the energy? And you can't do that. So you have to find what works for you. And it sounds like you picked 4 things that could be doable all day, every day, at any point in time. So like even if you're traveling for work, like maybe you're not in California, but you're in New York or somewhere else, and you're like, I still have my 4 things. I make sure I get those done, hit the gym, and then the momentum has been built. So it's been very easy for you to have the momentum. You don't have to have the the motivation every day, but you can have the momentum to get your discipline off the ground and running. And then by the end of the day, you feel good because you have done exactly what you said you would do. You kept a promise to yourself. And that's one of the biggest things I've noticed through this podcast. Am I getting an episode out every single week? No, I'm trying really hard to, but when I'm pulled in 7 directions, the thing I have to tell myself is the momentum is still there. You're still going. You're still putting yourself out there every day. Even if this week I just did research, fine. I did something towards my future goal. I put an investment into that. And it sounds like you've picked 4 things that help you build the investment into yourself. And that's amazing. What would you say to people though, if you're out doing your keynote speeches, or I know you talk to tech groups, you talk to founders, you talk to C-suite people, you talk to college students, a wide ranging group of people. If they can't do those 4 things in particular, how would you change the suggestion for your 4 key things that they need to do? What are like other things that could be going on? Because sometimes some kids can't wake up at 4 a.m. kind of deal. So what would be the alternative? Because I know that you're not going to preach a speech that's cookie cutter to every single group. You change it based on that. So I'm curious, how would you kind of change your motivational charisma there for the different types of people that maybe can't do what you're doing?
Yeah, well, most times when I'm given like a keynote, it's based on like their independent needs, right? So like if part of what I'm speaking to is transformation, I share, my win stacking process. So they have like a framework to kind of measure it against. But by no means is this the way, right? This is a way. This is a way for you to leverage and use to then inspire you to create your own system. Maybe it's just starting with a commitment to work out every day. Maybe it's just starting with a commitment to go to therapy once a week and actually do the homework they assign to you to do. Maybe it's just starting with meditation because part of your problem is anxiety and you need to clear your mind and focus on your breathing so you can come back to Zen, right? And feel better and confident and more ready to tap into flow state and go off, right? So I don't think it needs to be 4 or 5 extreme things. I think you just need to pick one and start. I didn't start with 4 things overnight. I started with the wake up and then reading, right? And then it evolved into meditation, right? And then finally I got tired of looking at myself in the mirror. And then I said, okay, working out is going to be part of my ethos, right? So my recommendation would be, don't overwhelm yourself with a perfect system. Be consistent. It's the same thing with your podcast, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're hard on you, but perfection isn't the goal because it doesn't exist. Are you consistent? If you say you're going to do something that day, right?
Right.
Are you going to do it? And have you planned it out, right? And made it to where you could measurably get it done. And that's what I preach, from the stage. It's not about a perfect system. It's about being consistent and just starting. Most people don't start because they lack confidence. But the thing is, confidence isn't the entry fee, right? It's the byproduct of action.
Right. Yeah.
Right? You don't start something because you're so confident. Confidence is earned from doing. And the more you do, the more confident you'll become in your system. And the more confident you become in your system, right? The more you'll begin to take on, because I think we're all blessed with this intuitive spirit of, whether you want to believe it or not, knowing what we need. You know what I mean? To some degree. And then the last thing I'll say on this, because you said it a second ago, was I think James Clear says it best, right? You don't rise to the levels of your goals.
Oh, yeah.
You fall to the level of your system.
Mm-hmm.
And while my system is a little extreme, and I know some people are like, well, I ain't doing those 4 things. Like that's a lot. And I would say, you're right.
Yeah.
You know, find your system. I want to inspire you to figure out what you need and just start. Just start. It'll make the world of a difference if you're truly trying to accomplish a goal or transform into the version of yourself that you want.
Yeah. I want to dig into the confidence there since you brought it up. Like when you first started out doing the speeches or being a professional keynote speaker or consultant to these other companies, not actually fully working for an individual company anymore, how did you transfer the skills that you had as an athlete and in tech sales and working in all these other places? And honestly, using your story of addiction, how did you transfer those skills and those experiences into what you're doing now? Because I think a lot of times when we are transitioning away from an old identity, we worry well, this is the only thing I've ever done. It's the only thing I know how to do. It's my only set of skills. I can't apply this anywhere else unless I just go back into it. And I know that that's not true, right? Especially for me, I was worried leaving the bureau and like getting out of intel and analysis and stats and criminal investigations. And I was like, I don't know how to be a marketing assistant. That was not what I was doing. I was living in the secrecy life. And that's just, it's not true. How I would track things and use different softwares and stuff, it was totally applicable. And I feel so much more confident now. But a lot of the times I know we have a really hard time letting go of that old stuff because we think we don't have anything to bring to the table. And you went from doing really well, 6+ figures a year for your tech sales, and now you're doing the keynote speeches and stuff and being a consultant. How did you transfer all those old skills, all those previous experiences, and use that to propel yourself forward now and build that current confidence?
Yeah. So there's some things that I learned through sports and just like mindset gyms that I come back to. And I think they both apply. The first one is activity creates insight. The only way you'll ever know if there is an untapped talent inside of you, outside of anything that you're like used to doing today, is by taking action, taking massive action. And like there's fear that comes with uncertainty, a new space, a new realm. And the story that coincides with that is my get hit story,
Yeah.
right? And I'll tell it really quickly. I was 5'3", football player in high school, which is extremely undersized, 130 pounds, but I was really fast, really quick. And I got called on to be a starter as a sophomore in high school, which doesn't happen often, right? Usually you're a junior or senior when you're starting, but here I am, tiny. And before the first play of the first game of the season, my sophomore year, I was terrified. I literally had like a panic attack in my bed the night before the first game. And when I woke up, all I could think about was trying to get out of the game. I'm like, what can I tell the coach to like not play today? And I know this sounds really immature, but I was 15 or 16, right? Like I was like
It's a dangerous sport. Like, I get it.
freaking out. All I thought about was my helmet getting knocked off or like hit so hard like I die, right? So I get to the stadium and I remember thinking, man, micro wins. Just put your cleats on. All right, now strap up your pads. Just one step at a time. All right, now just get out there. And I was an opening kick returner, which is where they kick the ball off and there's a guy that's waiting to receive it. That was my job. So I was going to get the ball first play of the game. So I kick the ball off. I get the ball. I'm freaking out. I run full speed and get hit so hard. Didn't even see the hit coming. And like I get whacked, right? And I pop up off the ground real quick. And I remember pausing for a second and looking around and being like, is that it? Like, wait a minute. Is that it? Is that what really had me terrified, almost faking an injury or an illness to get out of the game? That hit right there. And for me, that completely changed how I look at fear and uncertainty and these new realms. I call those get hit moments. What's waiting on the other side of that fear is breakthrough, confidence, self-awareness, a learned skill set. So for me as an athlete, tech sales leader who's now transferring those skills into speaking on stages and consulting, I know on that first day, all right, this is a get hit moment. My brain is terrified and I feel imposter syndrome and all these things. But like, that's my amygdala, right? The part of your brain that's there to protect you. It's literally doing its job. And the only way to learn is to take massive action. Activity creates insight. Get hit. That would be my recommendation.
Yeah, for sure. And you've been doing this over and over again. You've done tons of podcasts. You've been on plenty of stages and you've done what you thought was impossible. You wrote a book and you published it. And now you get to talk about it for the rest of your life. It's a system or it's a method that you've tried and tested over and over again. Despite all those things happening, do you still get even a little nervous when you're on stages or you're meeting a new crowd or things like that? Yeah. That's one of the things that like I'm trying to dispel here on the show is like
Kidding.
all the people you admire, they do get nervous sometimes too. They get scared. They worry.
Amanda, I freak out. Like my first consulting job,
Yeah.
they paid me a boatload of money. I almost turned it down.
Oh, no.
Yes, I remember looking at my wife. I don't know if I'm qualified for this. And mind you, I had scaled a sales organization from the ground up with some other leaders, obviously. It took a tribe, a whole team full of people, but I was one of the instrumental figures in like scaling this team. We took them IPO, changed my life, right? So I had the accolades, the skill set, and here I am looking at this company that just hired me, and I'm thinking about giving them a refund, like really giving their money back, like not sure if I'm qualified. So absolutely, I feel that. I experience it every time I either go to coach, consult, or speak on a stage. I did a TEDx talk and almost backed out because you had to memorize it word for word. And because of all my drug use, I don't believe in my memory as much, right? I really done some stuff to my brain. It terrified me to go do the TED talk, and I had to confront that. So long story short, I know I got really animated, but for the people listening, oh my God, like those thoughts, feelings, fears, emotions, they're never going to go away. The only way out is through. You got to confront them, and you got to get comfortable with what your brain and your body's doing as a reaction to uncertainty and excitement, right? And you being wired to do big things. Because once you get comfortable with that, it then becomes easier to push through. Now I can stop it, chill it out, and say, okay, I know where we're at right now. This just means I'm exactly where I need to be, and like we're moving through.
Yeah, and I'm glad that you're able to see that and acknowledge that, and you're not beating yourself up over it too. I should be more confident by now, or I should have done this by now. It's kind of like, nah, if I didn't care, if I was not nervous at all, or I wasn't a little bit afraid, a little bit butterfly-y before I went on that stage or before I showed up at that office, then I wouldn't care anymore. And if I didn't care anymore, then I wouldn't be doing what I love. And if I'm not doing what I love, then I'm not happy. And that's the slope, right? You don't want to slide back down. So I think it's good that you're acknowledging, these things don't change. And maybe that's actually good for you.
Yeah, it is. And what happens is it gets easier, right? Like me talking about wanting to give that company back their money for consulting. That was my first consulting gig. Of course, I was having doubts, but now when I get hired for consulting, I want to come across humble, but I'm like, I got you. I've done it now. My brain can associate wins and the experience of having done it now because I pushed through.
Yeah.
Same thing with the TED talk and the keynotes and stuff. It's like my first keynote, of course I was terrified. It was new. But by pushing through and getting that experience, you condition yourself to be confident and to know that what's waiting for you on the other side is great.
Yeah.
Yeah,
absolutely.
So we'll leave it at that.
And that's good. It sounds like you've put in the work to mentally condition yourself, emotionally condition yourself to be prepared for, whatever. I nearly died multiple times during my addiction. Nothing can get me now. If the drugs didn't kill me, a stage sure as hell ain't going to kill me. So I'd love it if you could dive in a little bit further towards your mental conditioning gems. You do have those listed in here in your book. There's 10 of them. And you may not have time to go through all 10, but prioritizing what those gems are, maybe a little bit about like how you came up with those in particular. And if I could only walk away with one of them, which one do I need to know as a listener?
Obviously, all 10 mean a lot to me. That's why like they're in the book, and they're all uncovered in like various stages of my life and experiences and like aha moments when reflecting. I think the main one that I think everybody can truly relate to is what I call pathological optimism, right?
Yeah, let's talk about that.
Like, pathological optimism isn't about being toxic positive, right? It's not about walking around like, oh my God, life is so great. I'm just going to focus on the greatness and like nothing's wrong. And, it's like, it's actually the opposite of that. It's like dealing with what's actually happening in your life, right? Sitting in those emotions, processing those moments, but believing that there is an upside, a window of opportunity, something that exists in this moment for you. Like if there's time on the clock in my sales field, I believe that the best customer is going to show up at the last minute and I'm going to close that deal and get to goal, right? Like it's just believing relentlessly in the possibility of good, not being toxic positive. And I think the aha moment that happened there for me that like helped me realize that there's these beautiful windows of opportunity and tough moments if you're looking for them, if you believe in them, was how I got my scholarship. Tore my ACL in high school, supposed to go to UCLA, couldn't go to UCLA, missed my entire senior season of high school football, no offers on the table anymore. And a coach walked in to recruit a teammate of mine, and that teammate was outside talking to another coach. This would, instead of me being bitter, jealous, oh my God, my life was over, I decided to go talk to that coach while he was waiting. And my highlight tape was sitting right there on top of the TV. And I asked him to watch my highlight tape. He watched it, offered me a scholarship on the spot. That's how I went to University of Hawaii. And I attribute it to like me just being pathologically optimistic. There was time on the clock. I couldn't play, but like I could do my rehab, right? As far as my knee was concerned, I could show up with the right spirit and energy. And when that moment presented itself, right, I reacted because that I viewed it as a moment rather than me viewing it as bitter and jealous. This coach is here to recruit a classmate, a teammate of mine, and not me, right? It's like perspective shift. So really quickly, that's pathological optimism, just relentlessly focusing on the possibility of good and the opportunities that can come out of that. The other one is Danza. Big Danza. I love that you asked me about this earlier. So long story short, Danza is short for Abu Danza, which is abundance in Italian. And me and my buddies took Abadanza and turned it into our war cry, right? Like we celebrate each other's success. We truly believe that there's enough success and good to go around, right? My brother or my best friend's success doesn't limit mine. Same thing at work, right? When I was in the trenches as a sales rep, I want to be number one, but not at the expense of my peers failing, right? And that mindset attracted so much good and just abundance and belief. And it also creates an energy in my circle because we all celebrate each other. You know what I mean? We all fuel each other. We pour into each other. And rather than, what the opposite of abundance is scarcity, right? So rather than having a scarcity mindset and being bitter and jealous when people around you are winning and doing the things that you want to be doing and feel like you should be doing, when you flip that, it allows you to have a lot more of a grateful mindset, which just attracts all of the goodness at your own pace. So Danza, if you follow me on Instagram, I'm constantly screaming out Danza. My friends are screaming out Danza. I got it tattooed on me, for Christ's sake.
Yeah. You're a full believer. Yeah.
I really am, man, because it's more than just a thought, right? Or like a mindset, Jim. It's a lifestyle, And I've just truly adopted the lifestyle. It's why I give back and mentor and do so many things to help so many other people's lives. You know what I mean? I truly believe there's so much for us all to win.
Yeah, I think that's wonderful. And those are really good gems to pull out of that and to use that and direct ones that we can use in our lives right now. Even if you haven't had the opportunity to read the book yet, those are two things that you can implement today if you're listening. I love that. We could honestly, Jason, we could probably talk for 2 more hours, but I want to be respectful of your time. So I only have the last couple of questions. For one of them that I want to ask about the book, and then a few that I always ask all of our guests. So your book is called Nobody's Legend: Let Go of Who You Were, Rewrite Your Story, and Take Back Your Life. Nobody's Legend is kind of a unique title, and you've got this gold peeking through in the black here. So I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit more about that, because it's not just a comeback story, it's a reintroduction of who you are and what you're presenting to the world. So can you talk about what this title means and what does it mean to you personally?
Yeah. So, I started getting a lot of attention as an athlete very young. And I became really well known in my city as this little dominant football player and basketball player for the most part. And I was kind of dubbed like Jason Ferguson, J Ferg, the legend, right? And my ego ate that up, man. My identity ate that up. And when I lost football, I lost my mind and I lost my self-worth. And I really felt like I had nothing to give and was almost ashamed to be out in public, right? Without this thing that I had built my notoriety on. It was really, really difficult. And I went out to eat with a friend of mine when I was deep in my addiction. And he saw some girls from high school and he was like, he knew them, I didn't. And he was like, hey, you guys know J Ferg, the legend? And I remember being like, man, I ain't nobody's legend. And when I started doing the work and actually working to come out of that and be the future self that I need to be for my wife, my kid, and all these things, right? I had a moment where I remembered that and started feeling like, wait a minute, I am a legend. I am a legend, but I'm a legend for all things that have nothing to do with football. I'm a legend for who I am in my community, how I show up for my family and my household, who I am to my friends, right? How I show up to lead at the company that I work for and for these companies that I consult, right? How I approach my everyday. And I believe everybody has their own version of legend that applies to who they believe they are and has nothing to do with external factors that were placed on them or like how they were convinced to, believe that, is wrapped up in their identity. So that's where the title came from. When I thought of it on a bike ride one day,
Yeah.
it just felt so fitting because it's like a play on legend. Like, I'm not that legend, you know what I mean? The legend that almost killed me, but I am a legend for all things that hold value to me. All other areas of my identity, I never took the time to explore.
I love that. No, that's really good. You're talking about all these things that could have made you a legend or could have ruined your legacy too. And somehow you found a way to not let it do that. And so you didn't let that lack of self-confidence take away legendary, let it manipulate things into another way where you're like, all right, I can be a legend for these reasons now. No, it doesn't have to be a legend only for football. So I think that's really good. Yeah. And it's a good lesson for anybody to take away from too,
Yeah, sorry to cut you off. I was gonna say, what a beautiful call out. It's like the call out that you just made around how some of the things in the book that I wrote, like the behaviors that I'm so ashamed of, could have ruined my legend. Because you're so right, and like they could have if I allowed it, right?
Yes.
So thank you for calling that out. Because sometimes I got to remind myself because I still deal with shame. Like I put it in the book, but it wasn't easy. You know what I mean? And I remember being fearful. Did I share too much? I had to consult a lawyer. I had to send it to my CRO and be like, hey, if this comes out, can I lose my job? You know what I mean?
I need to tell the truth. That's a legitimate fear too. And I deal with that too, because there's certain things that I know I cannot say on this show. One, because I'm still employed somewhere else. And two, I've already had people from my previous job ask me certain things like, hey, can you take that down or can you edit this? And I'm like, dang it. I need to figure out, there's nothing that I said that's necessarily going to get me arrested or anything like that. But just there's still a deep part of me where I want to build a legacy of a better life, a better world. I want to leave this place better than how I found it, which is why I want to live in a life of service. And the only way I can figure out how to combine that with creativity is through this podcast. And so the best way that I know to connect to people is to be authentic. But it's very difficult for me right now to tell an authentic story without people getting upset. And I don't know, I'm still trying to figure out how to navigate that because I don't want to let this go. And I don't want to put it at risk. And so eventually I'm going to figure out a way to figure out how to tell my story the right way and where it's still true. I'm not going to lie about the steps I took to get here, the mistakes I made to get here, but it's a really hard thing to do. And so I appreciate that you also talk about the authenticity trajectory that you had to go through too. And as soon as you actually got to live your truth, you became a better person or things started to fall into place the way that they always should have if you had not waited so long to let them do that.
It allowed me to reclaim control, right? Because now there's not this dark secret hanging over me. It's like, nah, man, all my shit is out there. And I'm not proud of it, but I've worked really hard to get past it. And my advice to you, Amanda, is all in due time, dude. You're doing all the right things. This podcast is fire. You're super authentic. You're super sincere, very thoughtful questions, all in due time. The universe and God, whatever you believe in, has the most amazing way of piecing these crazy things together. And your moment of true authenticity where it could be unleashed is around the corner and your time is coming. So don't even worry about it. Just keep doing it.
On its way.
It's really around the corner. It's right there waiting for you.
I appreciate that. That means a lot to me. From somebody that's gotten to that point and is able to live that life, it's really nice to be able to talk to someone who's there where I want to be and they can turn around and pass the baton back and be like, you catch it. Yeah, catch it. You got it. All right. So we'll just I call them the rapid fire questions, but since this is a deep podcast, it's kind of hard to rapid fire sometimes. But our last few ones, what do you want out of life and have you found what you're looking for?
Man, I just want happiness and I want for my daughter to grow up with the mindset and the confidence and the skill set to live a productive life. And I think I'm doing the work to continue to be happy and to be a good dad and husband for my families. That's what I want, right? I think that was the first question is that part is just happiness and no dark cloud covering, you know what I mean? Hovering over me because it was that way for too long. And then in terms of have I found what I was looking for, what was the second part to that question?
Yeah, just have you found it yet? Because the show is called Lost and Found. So sometimes I ask the people that are quote unquote found, Have you found
Yeah.
what it is that you're looking for? And some people say
Yeah.
yes and some people say no, but I think you definitely have, because if you're looking for the happiness and if you want to live by example for your wife and your daughter or your friends or whoever's in your good environment right now, I think you're for sure doing it.
Yeah. So I think yes, in that degree, right? Because I do the work every day and it's hard. And I think that like, if happiness is the goal, I'm right there and I'm content with that. But as far as truly finding it all, I think there's other areas where I'm really hard on myself, right? From a success standpoint and all the different wants that may not hold meaning from like a happiness standpoint, but more of like a financial standpoint. So I'd say I've kind of found it. I'm still really ambitious and really hard, but I think I'm doing the work, you know, and I can be proud of that. You know, can't really dictate the outcome and if I'll ever truly find it because I'm just a maniac. But I'm very, very proud of the man that I am and the work that I continue to do and how I show up for my family and community for sure.
Yeah, and as you should be. All right. What would you say has been your greatest achievement?
Getting clean and the type of dad that I am by far. And they go hand in hand, right? Because like if I didn't have a 1 month old kid at the house, like who knows how much longer I would have been out in the streets being crazy. My most proud greatest accomplishment is like being a father, but like the type of dad that I am, present. My kid is my world. Like, dude, being a dad is the best job on the planet. Are you kidding me? Like I literally do what I do so like I can create moments and experiences and like a life for her. So
Yeah.
I know these are supposed to be rapid fire. I go
That
on and on,
they're not.
but
They're not.
that was my answer right there.
It's a this is a transformation podcast. So this is a this is never truly rapid fire. Okay, so how do you define purpose and what does living in your purpose look like to you?
Yeah. So I think like purpose is often associated, right, with your impact on other people, in my mind, whereas passion is about you. So for me, my purpose is to get up every day and be the man that I know I needed 10 years ago when I was in my addiction and become that man
Mhm.
and then share that man with the world. That's my purpose.
Yeah, I love that. And I think I read that it was either came from a book or somewhere on Instagram. So I can't quote the exact person, but there's something around going like living in your purpose is becoming the person that you needed the most back whenever that moment was in your life, right? Like being able to grow up and look at yourself and go, I became the person that I needed when no one else was actually around. And so if I could have been that person, that future version of Amanda for the girl at, 25, 26 that was really going through it, that means I've made it. I've done it. I can be that person for who the younger me really needed at the time when I couldn't find her anywhere else. So yeah, I love that.
Absolutely. And then I would take it a step further and say, once you become that person, share that person,
Mm.
right? Which you are. You started a podcast, you're sharing, you know
Oh
what I
yeah.
mean? And like with me, it's the same, right? I want to continue to become that and then share that with as many people as possible to help try to help lives, you know?
Yeah. Well, and I used to think, and I still do sometimes, so this is part of my imposter syndrome, struggling with the idea that my story is not significant enough, right? There wasn't, I call it capital T trauma in my
Yeah.
life. And so when I was having identity issues and going through what I was going through, I was kind of like, nobody wants to hear me cry about this. Nobody wants to hear me be a 30-year-old millennial struggling. Like we're all struggling. Everybody's got problems. Why is my story going to be important or significant enough to talk about? And the truth is that that's not true at all. Right? Like everybody's story could help somebody else out, but you have to have the courage to be willing to share it to begin with. And exactly like you said earlier, sharing it is what helped you heal. And I 1,000% attribute that to my healing journey. That today is actually the day that we're recording right now. Today is the second anniversary of the show. And so I remember that day being like, if you don't do something right now, you're going to lose yourself. And you cannot risk not doing that anymore. You've done it for decades. You cannot do that anymore. You have to come up with something, do anything. So the first few episodes are rough. They're not just auditory, like brand new, but the emotions are there. That is, you're reading and listening to my actual diary. It is rough, but that's part of it, right? You have to let that out there and put that into the world, and somebody someday will find it and be like, oh, thank God. That's exactly how I was feeling.
That's it, man. That's it. You don't go to the movie for the ending, man. The middle of the movie is the best part of the movie.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
The
Yeah.
middle of the movie, you're in the middle of the movie.
Yeah. Yeah. You're in the middle. You're in the middle of that movie. Okay.
Middle.
You did mention having your daughter, so I'm going to change this question for you slightly. If your daughter grows up and she decides to listen to this podcast episode, what is the one lesson or message that you hope she would take away from our conversation today?
Yeah. I think what I try to instill in my kid, especially as it relates to this podcast, is whether she thinks she can or she thinks she can't, she's right. That's it. Your level of thinking will create the life that you want for yourself. That's it. Right? It starts with how you think. I tell people all the time, it doesn't start with what you do. It starts with what you think. And she could take anything away from this podcast. It's her thinking. You know what I mean? Her thinking is going to create the world, the life that she wants to live.
Absolutely. Your thoughts become your actions, right? So
become things.
exactly. That's a good one. All right. And final question. What advice do you have for people who are listening right now and they're probably feeling lost in their life, or they know that they need to make a change to get to a better place, get out of their current situation, but they just don't know where to start? What advice would you give someone feeling that way?
Yeah. One, I'm a big advocate for therapy. I think therapy is fantastic, not just for the clinical approach, but exploring. Because for me, true transformation starts with exploring your limited beliefs. What's keeping you trapped in this cycle, whether it's mental, physical, whatever it is that you're going through and you feel trapped, right? You need to transform, you need to break through. There's some level of sabotage thinking that is just cycling through. You need to explore that stuff. And whether you could do it on your own or with somebody like a therapist, I think that would be the best place to start, because then what follows that is total clarity about what you want. And that would be step 2, is get clear on who you want to become, what you want, and I would create that man or woman in extreme vivid detail, from how you look, how you feel, how much money you want to make, etc. But that's followed by exploring the limited thinking that's keeping you trapped today in your cycle, that repetitive crazy.
Yeah, and that's just great advice. You gotta look inward and figure out, where's that emotion coming from, where's that lost, stuck feeling coming from, and how do I? That's how you first step out of the out of that jungle, right? Out of that darkness, is to admit that you're even in there. Yeah.
Face it. I said this earlier, the only way out is through. You gotta face it.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Jason, this has been awesome. I've had so much fun talking to you and getting your insights and, learning so much more about your book and talking about that. So please let everybody know if they either want to work with you or follow your journey or, hit you up for a keynote speech. How can they do that? How do they find your book? Tell everybody.
Yeah, so my website is JF, as in Jason Ferguson, jfinspires.com. And I coach, I keynote speak, and I consult early stage tech companies. So anything that has to do with me, communicating with me, you can easily go to my website. You can find my book on basically anywhere that sells books. So it's on Audible, it's on Spotify, it's on Apple Books. I did my own narration, by the way, when it comes to the audiobook. So I wrote the book, told the story, really excited about the audiobook. And then Amazon, Barnes and Noble, if you want to buy the paperback or hardcover copy. So that's where you can find my website. That's where you can find the book. You can also find me on Instagram at @gethit_Jason Ferguson. And yeah, tap in, man. It was a pleasure. I really appreciate you sharing your platform with me.
Of course.
You did a great job today. Very thoughtful questions. And I love your energy, man. This was cracking.
Good, good. It's always so hard to do it when it's virtual. I know in person's so much more fun and you can vibe very well. So I appreciate the opportunity to take your time out of the day and to come on the show and to share your story. That takes a lot of raw vulnerability to do this particular show. And so I appreciate that very much. I will make sure to put all of Jason's information into the show notes or the description box. If you're on Spotify, swipe up, leave us a review. Let us know what you think. If you're on Apple, leave us some 5 stars. And this video will also be on our YouTube channel. Everything is under Podcast for the Lost. You can reach out to me, hello@podcastforthelost.com. You can check out my new website, which will be available as well, which is just Podcast for the Lost. I'll have everybody's links in there. Check it out, share it, Like, subscribe, leave a review, tell us what you think, and we can't wait to hear from you. And remember, wanderers are always welcome. All right.